See who accepts it.
Of course they're not, because of the Israeli government. So, I mean, even the hostage, like one of the hostages was saying that they were treated well, and that when they ate, when the Hamas ate, they ate.
Mm-hmm.
So they can't get out either. And
Right.
if they were really concerned about those hostages, they would cease fire and allow them to be, for it to be a ceasefire.
And this is back to where the difference between a people
Well-
and their government.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah,
And some people
let's
in
have
the
let's have
government.
this raw.
Yeah.
Let's have this raw conversation.
Yeah, but some people in their government. So different people are different, right? Yeah, we have a whole
Yeah,
range
because I was
of
like
people.
posting like every day, and I would never post dead babies, but I did this time because I said people need to see this, people need to understand.
Mm-hmm.
But let's have a raw conversation.
Okay, we can start. Ready?
Okay. So
watch the timer.
so we don't. So we're not using the
Oh,
clapping?
definitely. Yeah, use it. I like
Use
it's
it.
good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
Vicky's favorite part.
It's the one part I know I can do.
Okay, so when the timer says on the air, you're on the air, okay?
Okay.
Thanks. Welcome to Talking Peace with the Western New York Peace Center, being recorded here at Think Twice Radio in the home of the future, also the home of our producer and friend, Richard Wicca. Thanks, Richard. And thank you to our friends at WBNY, Buffalo's original alternative radio station, 91.3 FM. Thank you, Buff State. And while we're thinking of thankfulness, I'm thankful for our indigenous relations, our brothers and sisters, who, from whom I've learned the Haudenosaunee way of starting each gathering with Thanksgiving, especially at this time of year, but really they do it every day of the year, of the thankfulness, of giving greetings and salutations to Mother Earth for all that is provided to us that could allow us a good life here, and for the living waters, for all the plants and the trees and the animals of all kinds, and for the many phenomenon in our air, in the sky, the winds and the thunder beings and the brother sun and grandmother moon and all the stars and sky beings, and especially the Creator and all the love that brings us here, and all the thankfulness for the people that bring us here. And on this land that is stolen Haudenosaunee land. So it is stolen and gotten through trickery, attempted genocide, and violence that has been taken from the indigenous peoples. And also, as I'm sitting, we like to, I've just learned to do, when we're doing a land acknowledgement, also of enslaved people's acknowledgement, so that to acknowledge the suffering and injustice that has happened and that really continues to happen and that just needs to stop in every kind of a way. So, we have a very big subject that will, our subject is really militarism in a lot of ways, but I'm so grateful for our guest today, Cariel Horn, and we're calling this Travels with Cariel, because Cariel, you've been on the move. Shiro Cariel Horn, who most of you will know, is a former Buffalo police officer who lost her job and her pension over her kerfuffle over the fact that she stopped a possibly life-ending chokehold that somebody was under.
While he was handcuffed.
While he was handcuffed. I always have to remember to include that part. While he was handcuffed, and she stopped it another police officer. She is the author and promoter and or instigator, I would even say, of Cariol's Law, which makes it absolutely in the law explicitly mentioned that police officers are responsible for to stop the bad deeds of their fellow officers. So our Shiro, Cariol Horn, Cariol, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so
Again.
well, I'm so grateful to have you on the show, and I want to say happy birthday, Boxing Day.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, it's been a lot going on, well, everywhere, and certainly in your life, and you've gone to much of it just in the last while, and things are very related. So, so one of the things I just gave it, as I think I said a little bit of a preview, or maybe I didn't, that militarism is also very much of an underlying state-sponsored violence is another way of calling what we're talking about, because states have been and seem to think that they are justified in doing violence, even though there are international law and other laws that would stop them. What do you think?
I think that is why we want to stop Cop City.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and we'll definitely get to Cop City. So I'm going to say the two parts on this journey that you're talking about, that we'll be talking about, your trip to Jerusalem, to Israel and Palestine, and then to Cop City, very close on the heels of each other, both within the past just couple of weeks, really, right? Yeah.
Within the last month.
Yeah.
Well,
month.
it's been a little over a month
approaching approaching 2 months.
It's like
so
a month and a half.
A few months. Yeah, it's a lot of travel for that amount. But anyway, before we go there, what we always like to do is think about what values you want us to remember in this conversation. So what are the values that, when we think about your trips and this militarism that we're talking about, what are the values that you think you want people to bear in mind?
Sustaining life.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes me think of, I think it was Albert Schweitzer who said reverence for life. It's that sustaining and the sacredness, really, of life, of the preciousness of every life. So anyway, well, that's a beautiful one. I love to think of that one, and I think it is the critical one in this. And I can't help mentioning, though, truth and love, too, because one of the things is to tell the truth. So you're going to tell the things that you saw, the things that you experienced, and sort of, give your understanding of how they're connected and how it's connected to so many challenges that we're facing together, as a people in this time and place. So with that, if you want to either start with whatever you were just thinking, or start with your first trip and sort of how did it come about, and who did you go with, and then more about what you saw and what you experienced being there on October, by the way, before October 7th, and then on October 7th and on.
Okay, so I went on a 10-day trip to I just felt like I was going to Jerusalem to get a spiritual connection with the things that I've been raised on in the Christian religion, see the places that Jesus walked or whatever. So I just wanted to make that connection. What I got was way more than that. The trip, like I said, was 10 days, and it was with a Palestinian American. So we got to see what was really going on in Israel, Palestine. And when I was there, I didn't understand a lot of things, because you would tell me about Palestine and tell me a lot of things that was going on years ago, and I didn't understand. I just knew that I didn't like war, and that was the only connection that I mate with it. So going there and seeing how the Palestinians were being treated, I questioned a lot of things. Then to learn about the Nakba, which was in 1948, and to learn that the Palestinians have been going through oppression, something like before the civil rights, when blacks in the United States or whatever whatever they identify with, black, African American,
Mhm.
or whatever, even Jewish,
Mhm.
because I met black Jews, you know.
Right. Right.
So it was like a real awakening, because on the trip there were Jews, Christians, and Muslims.
Mhm.
I did notice at one point we were going through a checkpoint, because in the old city, Jerusalem, there's a lot of checkpoints.
Mhm.
And we were going through one, and I noticed that the guard, like I was like the third person. So the first person was the Palestinian American,
Mhm.
and he was going through the checkpoint. And so after he went, then there was a second person, but the guard kept looking at him. And then I'm watching the guard watch him, and then it was my turn, and he's still like looking at him. So when I got up to him, I said, "The guard keeps looking at you." And this is before I even know anything about how the Palestinians are treated.
Mhm.
And he pretty much didn't say anything. So we had like a session to basically talk about, our day and what we felt. And I said, to me, it seems that when I told you that the guard was looking at you, it made me feel like a black guy who's being stopped by the police and being frisked and things like that, and how they basically comply. And that's how it made me feel. Now, he's he is Dr. Rami Nashashibi, he's not like just any person just walking around doing nothing. He's got this fellow, and he's done a lot of things in Chicago, and he's very close and dear to my heart. So I was like feeling kind of protective over him, but at that point I wouldn't have known what to do.
Right.
But I guess maybe because he had a kufi on, I don't know. I'm not sure exactly why the guy was looking at him. But what I do know is that he probably recognized him as being Palestinian. But because we had such a large group, that maybe he felt like, well, maybe he's Palestinian, but at the same time, he's just not like somebody I can just mess over. I don't know. I don't know what he was
Right.
thinking. But I do notice that he put a lot of attention on him. And so when I said that to him, and then after the trip, and I found out about, I apologized to him. I said, I didn't know. I just felt like I didn't understand, what was going on, because he was focusing too much attention, and it's not like you posed any type of threat or anything.
Right.
I said, but now that I understand, I'm thinking, I felt hurt, because it's like he's not doing anything. Just like sometimes when these black guys are getting pulled over by the police,
Right.
or pulled out of their car, or they're not doing anything. Just why can't people just live in peace, But either way it goes,
Right.
that was like, I think the first thing that I noticed when I went there, that kind of said, what's going on? Even though the checkpoints were also a clue.
That's another thing.
Yeah. So, anyway, then after, learning about, basically settlers in Palestine, it's like in 1948, the land was divided, but yet the Israeli government supports Israelis moving on to Palestinian land even to this day.
Right.
And this has been going on for 75 years where they would actually come and give them like an hour to get out of their house, as settlers are waiting to just move into their house, that they can have dinner cooking and or whatever, and they still have to leave, and the settlers just go in and just start living there. That's not right.
It's not right.
Right. So, and then they have like these containers on top of the house that store water, and the Israelis would, the government would come and or the military would shoot bullet holes in it so that the water will be depleted, because they have the canisters up or the barrels up there, so that just in case the Israeli government cut their water off,
Right.
because they do it at any time.
Right.
But then they come and they shoot it, and the water is depleted. And I guess they had metal containers at one point, but they changed it over to plastic, because it's easier to repair.
Right.
But then the bullets and stuff that they're using were made in the USA. So actually, there's a refugee camp that we went to, and they were making jewelry out of the canisters, and on the canister it had "Made in the USA." So I bought 3 rings, and not purposely buying the rings that I bought, but they were red, white, and blue, like the flag colors. And I was like, well, I guess that's my contribution for what the U.S. has done to them.
Mm-hmm.
But it was, as I learned more and more, I felt like I wasn't too far removed from them. I felt like at home, like we were on Lud. We went there, and there's a wall up on the Palestinian. Well, all of it is Palestinian land, but the point is they have a wall up separating Palestine from where the settlers took over from where the Palestinians live.
Right.
And the Palestinians, they can't get permits to fix their property, yet on the other side of the wall, they're breaking ground to build new settlements for Israeli people to move in. And it reminds me of gentrification here. You know, it's like
Right.
people are being priced out of their neighborhoods. But it's a lot of things that were going on that I now know. And I'm definitely not saying Hamas was correct in what they were doing. I
Right.
definitely won't say that. But
Right.
what I will say is that when you back someone into a corner, they get a fight or flight reflex.
Right.
So I don't actually know why they reacted like they did, or we only hear what the story that they let out. I don't know what the bottom line story is, the real story. But of course, we've heard that they cut off 40 babies' heads, and that wasn't true. So I don't know what the real story is. But what I do know is that babies are dying, and there needs to be a ceasefire, and the
Right.
U.S. needs to
Right.
stay out of it or make sure that there is a ceasefire. And also, we went to the Holocaust Museum, and that's when I found out that there were New York City police officers who had been there a week prior, training with the IDF, which is the Israeli
Shaking.
Defense Force.
Yes.
Their
right.
military. And that was strange to me, because why would you have United States police officers going over to Israel to be trained? We have our own military, even though I think I wouldn't have agreed with that either, because
Right.
the police are already militarized enough. So
Oh, way over much.
way over much.
Yeah.
And so why would you have a foreign military training them,
Right.
as opposed to your own military, which, like I said, I still
or any military.
well, I still wouldn't agree with that. But
Yeah.
but why would you have a foreign military? What do you want that they're offering? And I think it's the occupation, which made me say that is why they want Cop City because they want to militarize our police officers more. And why? Because they control areas in each city. So the only thing that I can see is that they're going to occupy us. So there'll be checkpoints. So when we fight against the police checkpoints, when they stop, like just drop into any urban city, USA, when they set up the checkpoints and we fight against it, it would be something like that. Except it would be all of us, not just black people. So when I use the analogy of the 3 burning houses, it's like the middle house is on fire, which I would say is black people. Right now it's Palestinian people, but then the middle house is like, call the fire department. Middle houses matter. And then the left house is like, what do you mean? Left houses matter. Then the right house is like, what do you mean? Right houses matter. And then they all burn up because nobody put out the fire in the middle house. And that is basically what's going on and what I feel is going to happen because, you know, everybody want to say, well, what do you mean Black lives matter? All lives matter. Of course, all lives matter. But the point is, if you don't put that fire out in that middle house where black lives are living, then all houses are going to burn up. And so now that's where we are right now. So now they don't like that black people have come to a point where we are able to stand on our own 2 feet and to speak out without being beat or, well, we are being beat by police, but you know what I mean, like as far as slavery.
Right.
So now you have we have white allies who stand with us. We have Palestinians who stand with us. So now they're going to, as far as I believe, they're
Right.
going to try to shut us all up.
You know, I liked your analogy about the houses and being on fire because one of the things I'm forever saying is this thing of, you know, pouring gasoline on the fire. So violence begets violence, and so more violence, if there is violence, then trying to quash that violence with more violence is just pouring more fuel on the fire.
So why do
And-
you think they need a training center like Cop City?
Well, so actually, and I want to hear some more about Cop City. I do want to say, right off the bat, it reminds me of something that was called the School of the Americas. If you ever heard of that, School of the Americas or the School of the and there was the School of the Americas Watch, because the School of the Americas Watch was watching what was going on at the School of the Americas. The School of the Americas is in Georgia, in Fort Benning, at Fort Benning, Georgia, right outside Fort Benning or right by Fort Benning. And so the scoop with that is they were training Central American and South American military and paramilitary on so-called counterterrorism tactics. Well, can I say counterterrorism tactics?
You said they were training who?
They were training South American or Central American military and paramilitary. So these countries in South and Central America were sending, you know, and the U.S. would, I don't know if they paid for it or who paid for it or whatever it is, if it was so-called foreign aid or anything. I don't know how they arranged all that. But they would, you know, if they give them scholarships, what they did. But they had these military people coming to learn these so-called counterterrorism tactics that are also P.S. terrorism tactics for terrorizing their own people. Mm-hmm. If they, you know, and that's what it was. And that was very much what it was, especially for some of the more, progressive or leftist influences, indigenous peoples in those different countries, that the powers that be, whoever those were, right, were trying to quash to maintain their stranglehold on economic and political power. So the School of the Americas Watch, it was a Catholic Father Roy Bourgeois, who started it. Just, and the first time he went up in a tree near there, and he was broadcasting this speech by a bishop that had gotten murdered for his standing up against the terrorism of the terrorist governments. And anyway, so that was the School of the Americas. And School of the Americas Watch, there was people who were paying attention and going and protesting, getting arrested, spending, months or even a year or more in jail for protesting at the gates of the School of the Americas. Then they changed the name to WHINSEC, the Western Hemisphere Institute for Securities and Cooperation, or something like that.
Yeah, they changed names a lot so that people would get confused.
And then they say same, different name, same shame.
Thank you.
Yeah. But anyway, so it just makes me think, and the fact that it's also in Georgia about Cop City. So you had all this experience, you get on the tarmac, you didn't tell that part, when you're at the airport, not on the tarmac, at the airport when the bombs start going off on the 7th.
Yeah, I didn't get to that part because
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, actually, after the 10 days, I'm sure there's more that I
Oh,
haven't
sure.
said. But after the 10 days, then we were on our way to the airport for a midnight flight. And when we pulled up, and we started hearing sirens, but we didn't understand what the sirens were for. For me, the last time I heard a siren was in Memphis when there was a tornado going off, and so I'm thinking, is there something with the weather? Because the weather seemed pretty nice, so I wasn't understanding what the sirens were for.
Right.
And then I saw people running, and so then I went to the other side of the bus, and was looking at people, and they were like putting their bodies on the ground, like laying flat on the ground. And then you can see the missiles going off. And we were told that Israel has some type of missile deflection system.
Right.
So I'm not sure if that was it, but that probably was it. And so then we ran into the airport, and then our flight was delayed, and then it was canceled. So we wound up having to go to Jordan in order to get out of there to be able to get back home, which was the next day. I thank God that I went with that group of people who were very well organized. It was called Black Jerusalem. That was the name of the group. And it was... like I said, it was Christian, Jews, and Muslims. And we didn't have any issues as far as religion,
Right.
color, or anything like that.
Right.
So, nationality, anything. And it just made me think that our differences are used to keep us at odds with each other. And don't get me wrong, black people have had it rough all over the world.
Right.
But still, our differences are used to keep us at odds, so that I call it the puppeteer, so he can still remain in charge of what actions are going on. So then after that, because each day we had things packed into each day where we were seeing different things and learning different things. It was like a learning experience.
Sure.
And each day I would say, well, I'm going to journal what happened that day. But by the time I laid down, I was so tired, I would just go to sleep and then have to get up the next day and then be ready to do it all over again. I mean, the trip was excellent. I mean, I could
I'm
not
sure.
have asked for a better trip, especially to learn.
Right.
And when I came back, it was like I just wanted to be left alone for like a week and a half because I was trying to process everything.
Mm-hmm.
And, I kind of made the connection with Cop City.
So
there
tell
was
about that.
So there was
Yeah.
okay. There was a protest here in Buffalo, so I went to that, and I still wasn't feeling like I really wanted to be out, but I just wanted to go and support.
Mm-hmm.
And Marty Gugino was there, and so we were out and protesting that day, and I basically was saying that I was standing with them, the Palestinians, because of I saw what was going on in Palestine, and I understood, that we needed to cease fire. If Hamas killed some people, that was wrong, but the Israeli government just
Right.
was. I mean, that's
Wrong.
genocide.
Yes,
That's
right.
plain genocide.
Yes.
And then I went to Washington. They had a Palestinian rally there, and I wanted to learn more about Cop City. So when I went there, I was trying to make the connection, with Cop City and with the IDF.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a guy that was there who said that there was going to be a week-long teaching about Cop City in Georgia.
Uh-huh.
So I wanted to go there because I wanted to know more about Cop City.
Right. Right.
So when I got there in Georgia, again, I was learning a lot. I still haven't processed all of it because I just came
Sure.
back last week.
Mm-hmm.
So I still haven't processed all of it. But what I do know is that we had a peaceful rally, and there's a forest. Actually, it was a forest for natives, and I guess nothing. Well, they felt like it was just empty land, but just like some of the native people said, the land was doing what it was supposed to do.
Right.
It was growing things in the forest that are supposed to be grown.
Right.
So no, you're not supposed to bother it. You're supposed to leave it alone.
Right.
So anyway, there was a they call him a forest defender who was killed
Right.
for being in the forest.
Tortuguita. Yeah.
Tortuguita, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we basically were doing a peaceful rally. Some people wanted to go plant trees in the forest. And we were met with police. It looked like an armored car.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that was military. I didn't get close enough to read the side of it or anything,
Mm-hmm.
but it looked like a military that we were walking up to.
Mm-hmm.
And there was pepper spray. I mean, tear gas. I said pepper spray. Rubber bullets, flashbangs.
So they started using all of that?
Mm-hmm.
They had started it during this peaceful rally.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we all turned around, and it just made me think, during the George Floyd riots after he was murdered by the police, that millions of us throughout the world,
Right.
even in Palestine, they had a
Right.
picture up of him on the wall.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We were protesting, like, we don't want our police to do this to us. And millions of us.
Right.
And they haven't changed. They've only gotten worse. And then here we are talking about we don't want this genocide happening. You even have the Jewish people come out and say, this is not what we want.
Right.
And yet they are still murdering thousands of people, including children, babies in the hospital, bombing hospitals. So now I'm at the point where I am thinking that this one world government is going to happen, and that we are all going to be enslaved at some point, to some degree. And that's what I think that the militarized police where they will play a part in that. So I've been trying to like piece it all together, and if you're not listening to millions of people, you don't care what the people say. You just care about what you want. And when I say that, I'm talking about our government. So they only care about what they want. They don't care about what we want. They don't care about murdering us. They are going to do what they want to do. So many people have been killed by the police since George Floyd, and so many more bodies have been killed in Palestine.
So it's interesting, actually, what you just said about, if there's some sort of a world order where we're going to all be, enslaved. I'm not going to say yay or nay, but one thing
You don't have to.
No. But one thing I've thought in all of this is, yes, the bad acts of the various governments and people in charge. So that means Hamas. It definitely means the Israeli government, which has been just heinous
What
as
did you say
well.
about Hamas?
Hamas
hear you.
has been heinous. What they did was terrible. Although, as we said, backed into a corner, all of that, all the oppression and everything else. And I want to say heavy-duty trauma on both sides or all sides, right?
Let's not lessen what it is, though, Vicki. We have to
No.
be truthful about
Right.
how they've been treated.
Oh, yeah, I'm not lessening that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying actually Jewish people and
Because
the
the Palestinians have been murdered over there.
Right.
They've been murdered. They've been jailed for no reason.
Right.
Even young
Right,
children
right.
have been jailed.
Right.
So this is something that's been going on for 75 years.
Right.
So I'm not saying that Hamas should have gone over and did whatever. I don't even know what they did, because the point
Right.
is that I don't even know if the story is true. But what I do know is that if I punch you in the face, I'm just giving an example, then you get mad at me, you take me out. You don't take everybody out in the house because you just feel like, well, everybody's going to pay because you did this to me. But they're taking out everybody.
Right.
So it's beyond just getting back at Hamas, because if that was the case, they would negotiate with them.
Well, what
to get the
here's what both sides say is they both say, well, you
We go to
can't
their side.
you can't negotiate with an unreasonable person. That's what they both say on both sides. The other thing I want to say is it's very true, and not to take away one jot of the horrible oppression that Palestinians have undergone. They have, and the trauma, and 75 years of trauma upon trauma. The other part of that is that Jewish people have been undergoing trauma for the millennia. So they're just So it's just from even before Jesus, right? Before Jesus, and they were the Jesus killers and all of that. There was, the Babylonians and enslavement in Egypt.
Well, should the
and
native
everything else.
people go and start killing people and making them get off their land in
No,
America?
nobody's saying-
Or should black people say, okay, white people have done this to us, and just go kill up everybody?
I'm not saying it's excuses. I'm saying just as you said, and exactly as you said, trauma is not an excuse, but it is a reason. It's a reason that it happens, and you can just bet on it.
Trauma is not
that-
an excuse when it's still
Well, it
happening.
depends
over.
on what you call an excuse.
So if I punched
it's
you,
a reason. It's
and
a reason.
if I punched you and I stopped, then okay. But if I keep punching you and keep punching you, you're going to defend yourself at some point, right?
Yes, I mean you're
Right.
saying the very same thing that I said in a column that I just wrote. But the only thing is, I'm just saying to at least one of the reasons. There's two big things that are going on right now that I think is fear and trauma on the part of Israeli people, but coupled up with a government that is just fascist government out of control, with a military that's out of control. And then the people, they're traumatized people already. They're fearful. And I mean,
The Israelis.
Everyone.
Right, but if I'm so fearful, I am not going to move onto your land. I'm not going to watch you suffer
there's a combination of some people are fearful, other people are entitled or angry, and so they just want what they want and drunk with power because the Israeli government has been giving them that power. So that also exists. So we can't put people into, there's different people that are responding in different ways. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know that all of the Israelis are not down with what's going on.
Right.
I understand that.
Right.
That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that if the natives came back and they just wanted to put us out of our houses or whatever, that wouldn't be the right way to do it.
No, right.
So it's not right that for 75 years people have been getting put out of their homes.
No, it's not right.
And that
Absolutely.
that the Israeli Jews come back and say, well, God said this is our land. Well, if God wants you to have it, God will let you have it. You don't kill people or just put people out.
We're not disagreeing here.
Right. No. I'm
Yeah,
not. No. I'm just making a point.
Right.
I'm just saying that. So if someone does do that, then what do you expect? At some point, somebody's going to say, no more.
Right. This is what happened. So this is why when I think about the world, what I think of is international law that should help us to live, in peace and justice with each other, because war is illegal under international law. Going after civilians is illegal under all kinds of things that the U.S. government has done.
Why are they getting away with it, and why is the U.S. helping?
First of all, so that's the second part that I was going to talk about. And actually, I want everyone to know about this Merchants of Death Tribunal that's going on.
What's that?
And it's about the war profiteers. So there's nobody benefits from a war. Well, nobody except for who? Except for the weapons manufacturers. And they rake it in. And they will even say, oh, this should be very good for our bottom line, this war where people are dying, people are in misery. Nobody wins a war. The trauma of the people, and even the people who have who are into it, right? They've drunk the Kool-Aid, and there's a like a frenzy, of just destruction that armies have gone through, and that's happened. Well, it's certainly it's happened in the U.S. Army, and there's different instances that have been reported on, and there's a certain amount of it in any war, and that has grown over the years. So even those people, aren't they traumatized for life? Yes. They come home. So there's nobody winning. Only people winning, and even they are not winning, because the mortal injury to their soul of all the weapons manufacturing is just, and we are number one about weapons in every way, shape, and form. U.S., we are the primary weapons manufacturer. We spend more than half of our discretionary budget on our military, which is more than the next 9 countries in the world, right? All put together is not as much as what we spend. And then for the other some 170 countries in the world or whatever, they don't have any money. They're all the tiny little countries that don't have any money to spend on the military anyway, nor do they in most cases. So and then for selling for arms sales, we are also number one. And the other ones who's very high up there, the British somewhat. So of the big 6 manufacturers, 5 of them are American. I think that's right. It's 4 or 5 are American, and 5 or 6 of the top 5 or 6, and one of them is British. But the other ones who are very big into weapons manufacturing and surveillance especially, who do you think it is? I know you know it.
What do you mean?
Israel.
Oh.
Israel is very,
I thought
very
you meant
big.
a specific
I
company.
just meant like they have drones, they have surveillance. They have, and what I've read is that.
Yeah, but the U.S. is also funding.
Oh yeah,
This war.
and we also are funding, and we give them money for all that too, and weapons and,
weapons,
everything,
yes.
everything. And meanwhile, nobody wins that. Nobody wins it.
We definitely are not winning. The people. When I say we, I mean the people. And I don't understand it, and that is why, I'm thinking that we can't even protest without being brutalized.
Well, the one thing I will say, we just had a big protest. Now, I've seen the aerial pictures, so it was over 1,000. It wasn't over 2,000. I thought it might have been.
1,000 is a lot.
But 1,000
for
is a
Buffalo.
lot. 1,000 is a lot. It is a very lot. And I will say, the police did not bother anybody that I'm aware of. There was no. So just to let
I'm specifically talking about Cop City when
right,
I am say that.
right. And actually,
or when we talk about Black Lives. So for certain things,
Right.
but wait, tell me what that protest was. Who was giving that protest?
I'm
what
gonna
was
say
the title of it?
It was Ceasefire Now.
And it was
Stop
mostly
the
what?
killing, and it was mostly Muslims and Jews,
Okay,
with
together.
a few, some white people or Caucasian. Jews. The thing is, they're Semites. Is what actually both Jews. My understanding is Jews and Arabs, or at least the ones from the Middle East are both Semites, right? So they're actually should be, more linked and not more, But anyway, not black. So that's another factor. But the other thing I wanted to go back to on Cop City.
You say that's another factor. What do you mean?
Oh, I mean that. Oh, no question that black people are targets of policing.
Oh.
Of getting shot. Of getting. I mean, we know that the majority that there are two basic kinds of people who have been shot by the police, and that's armed white men and unarmed black men.
Some armed white men have not been shot by
Oh,
police.
and lots of them have not been shot. And not, I'm just saying in the numbers, the numbers that I've seen said that I'm sure there's plenty of armed white men who have not only not been arrested or shot, I mean, they have been,
taking a Burger King.
yeah, that's a whole nother thing. But just when people are shot, it's going to be one of those two groups.
Well, okay.
Right?
The only reason I said that was because the reason I asked about your protest was because they weren't black people talking about Black Lives. They were Caucasian people and even Middle Eastern people who are they couldn't go and try to slaughter them here or try to abuse them here because then it would look like the Americans are down with slaughtering brown people from over there. So the dynamics of that was different than
Right. Oh, sure. No question. That one other thing I wanted to go back to, though, about Cop City was that there has been so much effort on the part of a very well-organized, beautiful, beloved community to stop Cop City, where they had the city council or whatever they call their, city council. They had, hours and hours, hundreds of people testifying about how they didn't want Cop City, and then they wanted to go ahead and do it anyway.
Right. They're not listening to the people. They
Right.
are doing what they want to do.
Right.
And that, to me, is something we need to think about.
You're not kidding. It's scary. It's very scary. And the militarization of the police is a huge, huge thing. That's really what we're, one of the main things that we're talking about today here. Because the militarization of the police. So when we look at the military in Israel and Palestine and all of the misdeeds that are happening, when we look at the way back to, the way international law is not being observed at all, and then when we look at what's happening in our country in terms of the militarization of the police, and there's still qualified immunity that basically gives a carte blanche so police officers don't have repercussions for their mistakes or misdeeds, whatever you
Like
want to
it's not
call,
a
when they're
mistake.
shooting people, unarmed people, in their own fear and or their own entitlement. So anyway, so how can people get
That's
involved?
not just the police officers. It's who's covering it up also.
Also, yep. So how can people get more involved, and what can people do that you can think of to help with any of this?
Well, Cop City, there's organizers in Georgia who are working on stopping Cap City, but also know that Cap City is not just going to be in Georgia. There's proposals for it in other places. So people just need to get with the organizers. There's a lot of organizers in Georgia, so.
Well, we had one of them here. They spoke at Burning Books, and
From where? Which organization?
from Cop City.
Which organization?
I couldn't remember the fellow's name or the organization, but it was definitely, he was one of the people who was charged.
Okay. Community Movement Builders is who was who was in Washington, where I got the information from. But when I got there was a lot of different ones. Like even Surge is in Georgia, who's also involved. But there's a lot of different organizations that are involved. Actually, Black Lives Matter Grassroots is another one that's involved, the Atlanta chapter. So there's different organizations where someone can tap into those and find out where they feel comfortable.
And also people can find it on social media. There's Stop Cop City
Exactly.
on social media. You can spread the word there. I know they're always looking for donations as well. They've worked very hard, and they've been, amongst the just, the tear gassing and the rubber bullets and and the murdering of someone. They've also gone after the people who were raising bail money for people who were arrested.
Oh yeah, they did that, and 61 were charged with RICO charges, which is ridiculous for being in the forest. And then there were other ones that were arrested while I was there. One girl said that she wanted to say goodbye to the forest, whatever. And I don't know. I don't agree with a lot of things. But to militarize our police and use them against us, I definitely don't agree with.
Right. Well, me neither. The other thing I want to say in terms of what's going on in Israel and Palestine, one thing that people can be involved in is just calling for a ceasefire and pressuring our government to pressure the Israeli government to negotiate. So just to keep calling, to continue to do it. There have been any number of protests. I know you were just mentioning a couple of them. There have been, I did a summary of them. There have been half a dozen protests, as well as the regular Women in Black every Saturday, which actually started in Israel and Palestine, just by the way. Well, you've been there for that, too. So that's another thing.
I didn't know it started in Palestine.
It did. It started by Israeli and Palestinian women who had just had it with the violence. So it just has to stop. It makes me think of these kids in Afghanistan. They had the Border Free Center. That's what they called their space.
Then we have the Congo and Sudan.
Because they felt like that's what's going to help us, is to get away from the nation states and have people more, keep. I mean, there's a certain amount of organizing that needs to be done for things that, roads or, public utilities that people need, but they can be done without such an emphasis on the nation state and all that power to the nation state that is the power of, they all agree to ignore the international law. That's the other thing.
Okay, so what about Congo and the Sudan?
Well, that's another big thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's huge. And back to, you better believe that I'm sure we're there arming the teeth, but probably arming both sides, because that's what we'd like to do. Cha-ching, yeah. And by the way, well, more to follow, because there's Northrop Grumman is right around here in Buffalo.
More what?
Northrop Grumman is one of the big 5 or big 6 weapons manufacturers, and
In
they
Buffalo?
are here
Where's
in
that?
Buffalo. It's one of the companies.
No,
And
no. Where is it in Buffalo?
It's over near the airport.
North. What is it called?
Northrop Grumman. More to follow. More to
Northrop
follow.
Grumman.
More to follow. That's just a little thing, a little snippet for people. But
Yeah.
call the president, call Schumer, Gillibrand, and Higgins. Higgins is still our representative, and urge them to urge a ceasefire with the return of hostages, with the return of prisoners, with negotiations of, they need to negotiate this and to stop the arms sales. No more fueling the fire. So what's your final thoughts? Because we're getting ready to make it a wrap. So what would you like people to remember in all this?
I would like for them to remember that this is not something new. This is not something
Right.
new, and our governments are not listening to us, so we have to think of more creative ways to get them to listen. And we have to put our differences aside and come together and unite, because that is what they are afraid of.
Right. That is what we need to do. We're just one human family, and we all love our children. They're all of our. That's what I said at the rally that we just had. The children, they're all of our children. And the preciousness, going back to what you said about sustaining life, the preciousness of every life, every single one. So for each one that suffers so much, it doesn't have to be this way. The world, the things are there, and our challenges are things that require us to work together.
Yeah, I was very impressed with all of the white people that were at the protest at Cop City,
Oh, good.
because they understand, what is going to happen if it is built.
Right.
And so I was really impressed with that.
Well, we're going to be working together. We're going to be making sure, what happens, what needs to happen, and the things that need to not happen. Absolutely. Yeah. So thank you for all your courage and all that you've experienced, and sharing all of that, and all your strength and determination for all of us to have a better world. And
Thank you for having me here
Oh.
to even talk about it.
Well,
I appreciate that.
Thank you so much for coming and talking about it, Carrie-Ann, and for all your wonderful work. I can't thank you enough.
And thank you for always having my back.
Oh,
I
my
appreciate that.
big hugs and love. You know that. Always, always. Our Shiro. So thanks a jillion.
Thank you.
We're so grateful that you've been here. Meanwhile, this has been Talking Peace, and together we've been talking peace in truth and love. That's it. That's it.
Thank you.